Do you ever look at your meal and kind of wonder how in the world does your body get everything it needs to function, to all the processes from your brain to your heart or your muscles, to grow new cells, to everything, to get from that meal? Every nutrient your body needs, except for two, vitamin D and oxygen, you get from your diet. Your body relies on your diet to get every nutrient, vitamins, minerals, trace elements, phytonutrients, everything. And you may be making two assumptions about your diet to think that it actually does what it needs to do. Well, I'm going to go through those assumptions and tell you why they may actually not be correct. I will tell you what it is your body really needs and why it is so difficult to get. And then I'll give you some suggestions on how you can start to change your diet so that you give your body more of what it actually needs. So what are those two assumptions? Well, so the first assumption has to do with what we are told about what a healthy diet is. So maybe your government has these healthy guidelines, healthy eating guidelines. Some governments have pyramids that they use to explain what you need to eat. Some governments have these sort of circles with, this much of your plate should be this and this much of your diet should be that. And we assume that if we follow those guidelines, and they usually have to do with mostly fruit and vegetables, your country might also go with the 5 portions of veg and 2 of fruit a day, some small amounts of healthy proteins, very limited fats, they usually say. I will talk about that in another video, my views on that. And if you know these guidelines, you might think, well, I follow those, so my diet is healthy, right? Well, as a nutritionist, I look at those guidelines and I'm not so in love with them. For a number of reasons, but the main reason is that they have been designed for two things. One is they are for healthy people to stay healthy, and that is there's an underlying assumption on the government level that on the whole most people are healthy, which I don't think we are. We are exposed to lots of things that we can't avoid, but that puts a burden on our bodies that makes all of us to some level less healthy than we could have been. And that has to do with chronic systemic inflammation. Again, topic for another video. So the assumption is that you are a healthy person, and if you follow those guidelines, you will remain a healthy person. The other part of those guidelines is that governments realize that it's really difficult to get people to eat a healthy diet. So they've gone for the lowest expectations or requirements so that it makes it a bit easier for people to potentially move towards those guidelines. Because governments know it's hard to change your diet if you are not already eating a healthy diet. So they don't want to make it so complicated and so overwhelming that people don't even bother trying to eat more vegetables, more fruit, less meat, less processed foods, etc. So that's assumption one, that government guidelines, if you follow those, your diet will be healthy. The second assumption we make is that if you go to a supermarket or a grocery store and you buy your weekly groceries, fruit and vegetables, meats, whatever you eat, that what we buy is highly nutritious. Unfortunately, if we, for example, look at farm vegetables and fruit and vegetables, farmers need, I mean, being a farmer is tough. I grow a little bit of my own fruit and vegetables, and on Sunday I'm actually going to publish a video on making my garden, my vegetable garden, ready for my winter vegetables. I can grow winter vegetables where I am. But it's hard work. It's unpredictable. You're at the mercy of a lot of things. And so farmers have tried to kind of predict and ensure a good income. They go for yield. So they try to get as much produce as possible, as quickly as possible. Because of course, if you can harvest 2 times in the growing season instead of once, that will be really good. If you don't lose a lot of your produce, that will be good. So they don't grow for nutrient, they grow for yield. And that means that what they do to help that is actually counterproductive when it comes to nutrients. So they don't actually look at soil improvement, and that's unfortunate because all the nutrients that is in your apple, well, it comes from the air, which the farmer can't really control what's in the air, but it also comes from the soil. And if the nutrients aren't in the soil, they're not going to be in the fruit, or they're not going to be in your lettuce, or in your broccoli, or in your tomato, or etc. The other thing to prevent losing large crops to various diseases is that farmers now basically in the world only grow one type of corn and one type of wheat. There are few exceptions, but on the whole, what you buy in the supermarket is exactly the same in every country. If you buy any wheat product, the wheat that it's been grown from is basically 1 or 2 varieties. And I'll explain later why that is a problem. So there's very limited variety in what you can get. I was actually surprised the other day when I went to the supermarket. So we're now in autumn in Australia, so we're getting into the sort of autumn winter fruits, which means apples. And for most of the time for the last years, I mean, I'm talking 10, 15 years at least that I've been paying attention to it. You could buy 2 or 3 types of apple in all throughout the apple season. And I was pleasantly surprised to see that there's now a few more types of apples, but the prices range so much between them that most buyers, if you have to be money conscious, then you go for the cheapest apple. So you still only eat one type of apple. So we get very little variety in our diet, and that is a problem. So we've got 2 assumptions. One is that if you follow government guidelines on what is healthy eating, that it is actually healthy eating. And the second assumption is that what you buy is nutrient dense. So it contains lots and lots and lots of good nutrients. Neither of those assumptions are necessarily true. So now let's look at what your body really needs. It needs to get a maximum amount of nutrients possible. And I always go on this, and as I said before, I don't think most people are healthy. I think we all, because of our exposure to pollution in the air, or we all lead stressful lives. We now know that our bodies are full of microplastics and they cause enormous havoc. And so we are basically all at least suffering from chronic inflammation, which is low grade, but it's kind of simmering. And a lot of us have either health issues, or we have an increased risk of health concerns, whether that's genetic or because of, the lives we've led before. So I don't think we are healthy people. And so following these magical government healthy guidelines for healthy eating guidelines is probably not enough. It doesn't give you enough of the nutrients. Plus, what you buy to follow those guidelines doesn't give you all the nutrients you need. And if you have health concerns, you need more of certain nutrients. And are you getting those from your diet? So what is it our bodies really need? Well, what is our body built to do, or to receive and to function optimally? One of the things that our bodies are built for is diversity. Not just having, 5 different vegetables and 2 fruits a day. It is built for even diversity within types of food. So for example, as I said, wheat and corn, there's basically one type that we all eat. And we are not used to that. In hunter-gatherer days, when we go back thousands of years, or even the early farmers, but we would have different, if there was an area that was really conducive to a particular plant or a particular vegetable, then there wouldn't be just one type of that. There would be different variations of that same plant. Some would, be ready to harvest earlier, some would be later. So there would be, and there would be different soil types, even in a small area, so that also helped some variations grow here and some variations grow there. Even, I probably should have done looked it up, but I think we used to have hundreds of different types of apples. And you see now more and more that people are trying, especially when they grow their own, that they go for heritage vegetables and heritage fruits. And those are the old ones that haven't been modified, they haven't been sort of cultivated to be disease resistant, or so they are really the old ways that we used to eat. And there is lots and lots and lots of them. But we don't eat them anymore. And what that does, if we don't get the variation, one of the reasons so many of us now have gut issues is because if you eat the same thing all the time, your gut in particular, so your digestive system, gets irritated by it. So a lot of foods have the ability to irritate your digestive system, but if you only eat a little bit of each and you have lots of variation, then it's like none of it is too much to cause irritation and gut issues. So the lack of variation means that, one, you also don't get the range of nutrients, in particular phytonutrients, which are things like, the color in carrot. Interesting story about carrot, which is quite, so when you think about carrots are orange, right? I'm Dutch, if you didn't know that yet. But do you know that the orange carrot is not a natural carrot? Well, there were some orange carrots, but explorers going to South America, Dutch explorers, found carrots, and they tried to grow carrots that were orange in honor of our royal family, which is of the House of Orange. And so for some reason we ended up all over the world with orange carrots. But carrots can be white, they can be purple, they can be red, they can be yellow. So and each, if you have a bunch of carrots, so there's a purple carrot and a green, and not a green carrot. They're not nice. I don't think you ever try the top of the carrot that is green. Is not nice. But so you've got different colored orange carrots. Each of those carrots have nutrients in common, but they also have uniquely different nutrients, the phytonutrients that come from the color. So variation also increases the variation of nutrients. So we need diversity. We need more, not just of the number of different types of vegetables and fruits, but also within those we need variation to get more nutrients, to get more dense foods. That makes sense. The second thing that our bodies need is seasonal foods, and this is particular for fruit and vegetables. We've gotten so used to be able to eat certain foods all year round, because they can be shipped in from just about everywhere. What that means, though, is if you want an orange in summer, which is, oranges tend to, and in some parts in the world, you can't grow oranges because you don't have, or any citrus because you don't have the right temperature. That means they need to come from somewhere, really somewhere else. That means that they need to get harvested well before they're ripe. Now, most fruit and vegetables, when you harvest them, when they are ready to be harvested, that's when they're at their peak nutrient density. And if you've ever tried, grown some, for example, tomatoes, and you pick them just when they're absolutely ripe and you eat them straight away, you'll know they have a completely different taste, which also means that they are full of the nutrients that, they will never produce any more nutrients. They will never be more nutrient dense than that moment. But because we get things shipped in, they need to be harvested when they are not ripe, and so they don't get exposure to sunlight, to more soil, more nutrients from the soil. So they just contain less nutrients, and then they're often artificially ripened just to make them taste better, but they are not as nutrient dense. So if you eat seasonal fruit and vegetables, so when it is in season in your particular area, because that's my the third thing that your body needs, but they are higher in nutrients. So the third one is they need to be grown in your area, so that they don't need to be transported when and again harvested when they're not ripe. So those two go hand in hand. Now the last one is something in an ideal world, but I am very conscious of the fact that I can't afford it. Most of us can't afford it. But in an ideal world, we would only eat organically grown food. I try to grow at least some of my own fruit and vegetables. As I said, watch Sunday's video, and I grow that organic. But I know that if I go to the grocery shop or the supermarket and I look at the organic fruit and vegetables, I usually cannot afford it. And the range of foods that are grown organically is also very small. So I put that last, but it is something that our bodies would prefer, because anything that's not organic has been sprayed with pesticides, herbicides, all those lovely things that farmers need to get a good yield. But they do a lot of damage to our bodies. They get into the soil, and then plants absorb that from the soil. So even if it's not sprayed on, it will grow into the fruit and vegetables. So and all those chemicals increase our chronic inflammation. So that's all the bad news. So it's really hard to get a properly healthy diet from just following government guidelines and going to the supermarket. But there are some things that you can do to start to improve your diet. And it doesn't matter what kind of diet you follow, whether you do paleo, whether you do keto, whether you are Mediterranean, vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, any diet. Here are some things that are important to do, and it's particularly around your fruit and vegetables. So the most people know about the 5 and 2. So 5 portions of vegetables and 2 portions of fruit a day. Well, you could eat the exact same thing every day. So the same 5 vegetables and the same 2 fruits a day. Seems like you're meeting the requirements. However, your body needs at least 15 different types of fruits and vegetables a week. So if you eat the exact same thing every day, then you're only getting your 5 fruits, 5. Gosh, I want you to eat more fruit, don't I? Your 5 vegetables, and you only get 5 vegetables. You need at least 15 different types of vegetables a week. Fruit and vegetables. So between them, you can, so really 15 plant-based foods, because you can add things like nuts and seeds and whole grains and lentils and things to that. So I think that's an important thing to start aiming for. So to increase the variety in terms of how much of the different ones you eat. So make a list for 1 week. Make a list of all the fruit and vegetables, all the plant-based foods that you eat, and see if you can get that up to 15. I mean, 20 would be better, but you may not have access to those. So what you can include is vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, grains, whole grains, things like rice, things like lentils, beans. They are all included in that list. And then if you don't reach the 15, start to think about what other plant-based foods you can add to your meals during the week. Can you, if you're not eating any nuts, can you start eating some nuts? And even within the nuts, can you increase the range of, because I used to only really eat almonds and peanuts. And so then I thought, oh, there's very little variation there. So I started to add different types of nuts to my nut eating habit. So make that list and start tracking. And if you reach the 15, aim for 20, because more variety is better. Definitely, if you don't already are aware of seasonal foods, start to really re-educate yourself on what is commonly eaten, or what is really a seasonal food in my area of the world in this season. And I find, especially in supermarkets, it's fairly easy to determine because they're usually the cheapest. And also look at what is locally grown. Really go through your diet and look at what am I eating that has become something that we really value, but is really not a locally grown food ever. I remember my mum, who lived in the Netherlands, he would come over to Australia regularly, and she loved mango. And so when she had a mango, when she come here in summer, I would always make sure there were lots of mango for her. And then she went back to the Netherlands, and at some point she told me that there were mangoes that she could buy at Aldi in the Netherlands. And so she went, oh, mangoes. And so she bought one, and she said, it's horrible. It's horrible. It wasn't ripe. And she said, no matter how long I left it on the fruit bowl, it didn't really ever get to be a proper mango tasting mango. And that's because the Netherlands, or even close to the Netherlands, You can't grow mangoes. You need tropics. So really go for seasonal and things that can grow locally, because if they work in your local soil, that means those fruit and vegetables will take up as many nutrients as it possibly can, and it will be a more nutrient dense fruit and vegetable. So really my message for you today is you just can't assume that what you're eating is giving your body everything it needs. And I find the magic of your body turning food into small building blocks and small molecules, and that get into your bloodstream and somehow get to all your organs and make it all work magical. But I also know that that is all needed to stay healthy for as long as you can. And it really all comes down initially to your diet. I hope this was insightful. It wasn't really down to earth practical, and I promise in upcoming videos I'll become much more practical, because I think one of the things I want to do is bust some other myths that we've lived our lives by, including things about fat. But also I would like to, if that is something of interest to you, just make different videos about different health concerns, and how you can eat to either prevent them or to manage them better. So really let me know what you find most useful. I love your input, because that makes it a lot easier for me to be targeted. All right, thank you very much for watching. If you find this really interesting and you haven't subscribed yet, make sure that you do, because then you get notified when new videos come up. If you liked what I told you, just give me a like. That really helps my channel, and that makes it easier for me to make more videos. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.